I got the cash in the bag, stadium packed. Born a rock star in this life, gon' live it up on the attack. Baby, I'm bad, I just wanna get caught up in this life. I'm crazy, I'm mad, doing no cap. Only God wants you, better go live it up. Cash in the bag, stadium packed. Baby, I'm bad,
Yeah.
baby, I'm bad.
Shoulder mount. Not an easy move, right? Some people seem to get it what seems like relatively effortlessly, and then for some, you feel like you've been working on it forever and it's just not clicking. So, I've got a few different progressions that will help you work towards mastering your shoulder mount. Okay, part of it is knowing where the push and pull is, the physics of it. Part of it is the strength, but making sure that you're actually directing the strength in the correct direction. Okay, it's all about working smarter, not harder. Okay, so number one thing that you should work on towards your shoulder mount is be able to find the engagement of the lift with the arms. So this you're going to do standing next to your pole. Stand with your butt completely against the pole. Personally, I actually prefer starting on the tiptoes. Reason for that is as you start to feel the lift, it might be you only lifted like a millimeter, but if we're flat foot, that millimeter is absorbed by your toes and it just kind of feels kind of defeating. Versus if you're on your tiptoes, if you get a millimeter lift, you're like, oh, my toes are barely touching. So it just kind of makes us feel the progress a lot more. Okay. So you're going to start your tiptoes, your back is to the pole, your butt is to the pole. Whichever shoulder the pole is on, that arm is lower, roughly a 90 degree, and the other hand is above it. Both hands are in a cup grip. Okay, so the thumb does not wrap, it's right next to the fingers. And you want to think of squeezing your elbows together. Okay, you can do this with the hands switched, but more often than not, I find it's more ergonomically sound to have the same side shoulder arm lower. Plus, there's a lot of tricks and transitions later on that you want to have your hands in that position. That being said, once you're super solid with your shoulder mount, you can switch your hands however, and you're really not going to notice a huge difference with it. Okay, so we're standing up on our tiptoes, back and butter to the pole, head is to the side, so you're feeling the pole close to your neck on your traps there. Same side hand as shoulder is roughly a 90, other hand right above it. You're going to look up towards the ceiling. Your arms, you're going to think about squeezing your elbows together, and it's this pulling motion. Okay, so it's not that we're pulling down. Okay, oftentimes we think of like holding on so we don't slide down. It's more so think of pulling away. Okay, it's like you're chopping wood because most of us do that every day. Not. So here I'm pulling, and now the next part of it is you're going to think of a little chest lift. Okay, so it's lift as you pull with your arms. So it's the two together. Your arms are pulling this way, your chest is pulling this way. So up, look to the ceiling, little lift. Okay, nothing is happening down here. My legs are just dangling like sausages. We're just focusing on finding this. Okay, so once you're able to find this and you're starting to get a consistent lift, where you're like, oh, okay, I actually feel myself getting lighter in my toes, lighter on my feet, then you can start adding one leg. Okay, and when I say adding one leg, that means bring the knee up. Okay, does it matter if it's the same knee as shoulder, opposite knee as shoulder? Doesn't matter. Just make sure that when you switch sides, you switch legs. Okay, so don't do right shoulder, right leg, left shoulder, right leg. Go right shoulder, right leg, left shoulder, left leg, or left shoulder, right, you get the picture. Make sure you're evenly working both. Okay, so once you've got just the chest lift, we add the leg in. It starts exactly the same, except for now, little lift. That's it. Okay, so that helps you find where the mechanics, the push, the pull, this engagement, which is really important. A lot of people start focusing on lifting their butt, but they haven't found where that contact point is. And then they end up, having some slide issues with their shoulder mount. Okay, so that's the first step to work on. Second part, you're going to do from laying on the floor. And this part, you actually can work on these. If you don't have a pole, you can work on them at home. If you have like a couch or a bed, something heavy that will not come down on top of you. That's very important. Okay, so if you're using the pole, you're going to position your hands the same way. You don't need your shoulder to be touching the pole though. Okay, you can give yourself some space. If you do want your shoulder touching the pole, feel free to take a pole towel or wear a heavy sweatshirt just to kind of give your shoulder a little protection, because with a lot of reps of these, sometimes it starts to put a little pressure on those traps there. Okay, so hand position is the same. Our goal eventually is to go straight legs, hips, and then straight legs down. Depending on where you're starting, if you're not quite ready for that, start with your legs bent, and then trying to go to that straddle. Legs bent, and bringing it down. Okay, really important thing to notice, I wasn't bringing my pubic bone or my hips all the way to the pole. I'm just trying to find that spot where I still have tension. Okay, if you were up in the air and you bring your hips all the way to the pole too soon, it takes away from the tension. Okay, so we're just trying to get to where our hips are up and then controlling it back down. Okay, so this would be step one on the floor. If you are using like a couch or a bed or something at home instead of a pole, you'll just put your hands this way underneath whatever it is and use that. Elbows will point up versus squeezing in together. Okay, but you can still do the same motion. It still helps develop the same strength, body awareness, coordination, all those things. Okay, so if these straddles are feeling relatively easy, now we're going to focus on what's going to happen with our hips down the road. You've got your hips to where they're up, but we want to start thinking about, okay, what about eventually when I want to shoulder mount and hook my legs, okay? Because that's actually where a lot of people start to get in trouble. They're able to kind of get their butt up to parallelish to the ground, but that last part parallel to the pole is a little scary or not engaged quite right. Okay, so for this one, your goal now is to have straight legs, and think of it this way. The pole is the finish line, but you don't want to cross the finish line. I know, it's weird. So instead of before when we were doing the straddle and our legs were coming past the pole, now we want to go up and back down. Okay, so it's helping you start to find this little thrust motion of your core and that shoot up. Okay, so once again, you can start with this one with bent legs, depending on where you're at strength wise. And then eventually the goal is to go, or start with bent and then go to straight. Straight up, control it down. Straight up and control it down. Okay, so that's your progression for on the floor for your shoulder mount. Okay, so we have our standing ones, chest, and then adding one knee. We have our laying down ones, straddle, and then eventually pike ups. Next step, as both of those are like, okay, you're feeling the strength, you're feeling the abdominal engagement, starting to feel a little bit of body awareness with it. The next step is to take it to sitting, okay? And the reason I say sitting is there's less risk of error and injury. And sometimes what's holding us back in a move isn't just our strength, there's a little bit of fear, right? And if we're standing and we do it wrong, there's a long ways to slide. If we're sitting and we slide it down, not quite so far. That being said, if you are working with a hard floor on these and you want to put like, a couch cushion or a pillow under your booty just in case you come down slightly unceremoniously, that would probably be a good idea. Okay, so the sitting one, you're going to start sitting against the pole. Picture you're standing, okay? Arms are the same position. And on this one, we're going to bring one leg up. It doesn't matter which leg. Generally speaking, I find whichever shoulder I have it on, that's the leg that I want to come up first. But if you have strong feelings to do the other leg, totally fine. Just like when we did the knee bend, just make sure that when you switch shoulders, you switch legs, okay? So you're gonna go shoulder to the pole. You're gonna lift your hips up and go to here. And then from here, you're just gonna go a little kick. That's it. All we're trying to establish first here is a little weightless moment, okay? Because as much as you might have the strength to do a shoulder mount, I never underestimate the power of the freak out. And all it takes is a little freak out of, oh my gosh, I left the ground. And then we have a little lack of engagement for a millisecond because we kind of freaked ourselves out, and then you slide down. Okay, so to prevent any kind of injury, we start with just these little hops, and then you start to feel, oh, as my legs leave the ground, I feel that tension of my hips and my arms. Okay, so your goal is just to have a little weightless moment. Maybe my foot was coming off the ground this much. Maybe your foot is coming off the ground just enough to slip a piece of paper through. That's fine. The goal with this one is just to start to feel, okay, for a millisecond, everything was off the ground and I can feel where my body's engaging, and to get to the point where it's not scary, but it starts to come naturally. Okay, so you're gonna start with that. Little hops, okay? Do maybe 5 or 10 on each side. I would say with all of these exercises, do roughly 5 on each side. And then if you want to repeat that again and again, feel free to do so. Okay. So if these little hops are feeling good and they're feeling solid and you're feeling confident, the next step is to actually lift both legs off the ground and hold it. Okay. And this, once again, if you are on a hard floor, you might want to have a little cush right here. If you don't have a pole mat, that's okay. You don't need to cover the entire floor, just right where your booty is. Okay. So you're going to start the same way. You can start from sitting and then go right up into it, or you can start with your hips up, whichever makes more sense in your head and feels more comfortable. Okay. You're going to go up. You're going to bring that one leg, other leg, and then try to tuck and come down as slowly as you can. Okay, so work the negative. Don't just go up and be like, ta-da, and then come down like a sack of potatoes. Okay, you want to work on controlling the down as well, because sometimes it's the recoil out of moves that can really start to jack up our back, our ribs, all those things. So don't just get into it. You know, I understand the excitement. Sometimes we get into something, we're so excited that we just fling ourselves out of it because we can't wait to tell the whole world. But try to contain your excitement and come down with control. Okay. All right. So we have 6 different variations, really 3 different move things. We have the standing with the chest. Remember, start with legs dangling. If that feels good, add a knee. Okay. From the ground, laying down, straddles first, and then working towards pike. If those are feeling good, both of those 2, then we take it to our little hop weightless moment where you're starting to go to like a full shoulder mount. Doesn't matter if you're 6 inches off the ground or 6 feet, you're still feeling how you're supporting your entire body weight up. Add your little weightless moments here. If those are feeling good, all the way up, control, all the way down. Okay, so those are some shoulder mount conditioning progressions for you to help training your body and your brain, because teaching your brain is just as important as teaching your muscles. And sometimes our muscles don't fully integrate unless we teach our brain. So add those into your regular training. You don't have to do a bazillion of them to get your shoulder mount. It could be maybe you just do 1 set of those as part of your kind of warm-up conditioning before you go into whatever it is you're working on. And with these, keep in mind, everyone's body develops differently. Okay, whether you can do a shoulder mount or not does not make you a beginner, an intermediate, or advanced puller. Some people develop their shoulder mount very easily in the early stages, but they struggle with something like a pull sit. And then other people, pull sit is easy for them from their very first class. Shoulder mount might take them years to master. Okay, so just keep in mind that our bodies are all different. Our brain, our muscle development, everyone's a little bit different, and it doesn't make you any less of a pole dancer because you can't do a move that you seem to see everyone else doing super easily. You're going to find things that are your strengths and you're going to have things that are your weaknesses. So be patient with yourself. If this is not working for you, your shoulder mounts, ask yourself, have I been consistently working on it? And just think of it as like, I'm going to put the work in and it's going to be a process and I'll get there eventually. And in the meantime, there's so many other pole moves that you can work on as you're developing the strength and awareness for this. So I hope these shoulder mount exercises have been helpful for you, because once you get that shoulder mount, there's all kinds of, you know, different variations of combos and things that you can do from there. So have some fun with this, but of course, this is not the only way to get upside down. Let me know how it goes. Any thoughts on this? Which ones work best for you? Maybe, you know, what some of your favorite drills are for shoulder mount that maybe aren't included in here that I should add in for next time. So have fun. Let me know how it goes.
I got the cash in the bag, stadium packed. Born a rock star in this life, gone live it up on the attack. Baby, I'm bad, I just wanna get caught up in this life. I'm crazy, I'm mad, doing no cap. Only God wants you better.